Okay, fabulous. Okay, then. Let's start with introductions. Should we start with Ruth?
Hi. So I am Ruth. I have spinal muscular atrophy, which obviously I've had since I was a child. I've had PAs my whole adult life, but I was single for the beginning of my adult life, and then I met Dave, and we got married. And so uh, we've kind of learned together um, how to navigate how it differs. I've learned how it differs between having a PA when you're single and having a PA when you're in a couple. So I should probably ask Dave to introduce himself.
So yeah, I'm Dave. Me and Ruth met about 8 years ago on a random internet date. Are still together. Got married a couple of years ago now. So I've had relationships with people without a PA before, and I've been single for a bit. But when I first met Ruth, we had to figure out how to navigate this world of me, Ruth, and someone else, and how to deal with that. So hopefully we can pass on some of our knowledge, and the someone else for today.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I was Ruth's PA back in 2018, I think it was, Ruth. When you said 8 years ago, Dave, that stressed me out. It doesn't feel like 8 years. Um, so I worked with Ruth for a year as her PA back when Ruth and Dave were dating. Yeah, I'm a nurse by background as well. After I finished with Ruth, I went and did a master's in nursing. So I'm currently working as a chemotherapy nurse in the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital as well.
Fantastic. Okie dokie. Who would like to start us off?
Well, why don't I explain a little bit about the kind of the relationship? Because obviously I'm the one that's had PAs. I've seen it from both sides. And when I was single, I was very much, I had relationships with PAs. I had good working relationships with my PAs. And then I had dates and occasional boyfriends, and um, uh, I was in relationships that were uh, a little bit less um, less serious, and then I kept those relationships separate. And actually, what happened when Dave and I kind of got closer together, got closer, was that I then had to kind of work out how that third side of the triangle uh, happened, because Dave had to have he had to know the PAs, and he had to interact with the PAs, and the PAs were in his home. Um, and my PA needs meant kind of impacted our lives, or his life, a lot more. Um, uh, so so whereas it was a nice straightforward my relationship with individual people, now there's more of a group dynamic. Um, and I think we've we've learned to navigate. It's been a learning curve uh, for all of us, I think.
It is.
Yep.
It is a learning curve.
You
Yeah.
said it nicely when I was speaking to you the other day, Ruth. You said it was like a triangle, and I liked that. We have in a relationship, you've got 2 points of a triangle, and us as a PA is another part of that triangle that we were discussing. And so trying to navigate how we all fit and work together was really important.
Yeah, and I think each point of the triangle, each person needs to be aware of the relationship on the other side between the other two people.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and when everybody pays attention to that, and thinks of the other two people involved, then it works really well.
Yeah.
So
Um,
the rule we've always gone rule, whatever you guideline, whatever you call it, is that what would it look like if if Ruth didn't need a PA and was able-bodied? And the PA is there to fill in the gaps that Ruth can't do for herself. But other than that, the role of the PA in this triangle is to fill in anything that Ruth can't do. We occasionally refer to the PAs as Ruth's arms and legs. Might not be terribly politically correct, but it's an accurate representation of what they do.
I think that's actually how she described it in my interview.
We phrase it like that in my house as well.
Yeah, it really gets you to visualize what you're doing, and you really are, because you're facilitating kind of in this case Ruth to live the way that she would want to if I wasn't there, and you know it's important to kind of support that, and be the arms and legs as needed.
Yeah. And I think that kind of, yeah, there are things that are necessary for a PA to do, and that rule of what would be happening if I were able-bodied is a really useful one, because a PA is not there to be, we wouldn't have a third person in the house at all, and a PA is not there to fulfill any roles, or overstep any boundaries into changing what our life is from what it would be like if I were able-bodied.
Yeah.
So it's really important to understand those roles and those boundaries. And there are boundaries for everybody. Yeah. There's physical boundaries. In our house, we have physical boundaries where the PA has space which is entirely her own, and into which Dave doesn't go. I mean, I physically can't get in, it's upstairs. But yeah, we have that rule. And then as well, there are parts of the house that are Dave's, that PAs don't go into. So we have physical boundaries of who goes where and who crosses what lines. But then there are also the same kinds of things with roles, and PAs understanding what their role is and isn't, and where the relationships can and can't go for everybody's well-being.
And the same goes for me. I have to understand what is part of the PA's role, what is the PA getting Ruth up in the morning, and not interfere with that. You know, that's part of Ruth's independence and mobility. And if I start going in and trying to put her shoes on, which I'm terrible at, I wouldn't do that anyway. Then that's me starting to get in the way of Ruth's independence, of Ruth's relationship with the PA. So it's kind of important that I let them get on with that, and understand that boundary.
And
Which does lead to me sitting on the sofa waiting for Ruth to get ready, but that might well happen if you didn't have a PA. So
us girls like taking our time.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the spinal muscular atrophy. Let's put
No.
it like that.
What you were saying, Dave, is also important, because I think that when you start as a PA, having that time with Ruth is where you're actually learning like the little intricacies of you as a person, Ruth. But I guess this goes for anybody. You kind of have to learn what you like and dislike, what works well and what doesn't, and all of that is a learning curve. And so if Dave were to kind of step in, it takes away that teaching moment. And in the long run, it may be detrimental. And so if Dave steps in every time, that's, it might be something that you know makes it difficult in the long run, because I wouldn't have been able to learn with Ruth, and actually we could have done it quicker initially. And having that time to talk through everything as well was really helpful. But again, Dave was always there if we needed him, and that was absolutely fine. But that wouldn't be from me; that would be through Ruth. So say if Ruth decided that we did need an extra hand, then she would say, "Hey, Dave, we need your help." It wouldn't be down to me, because that's just how things work, and it's important to do that.
And I think, you know, in a relationship, you know, I always say Dave is as much my carer, or I am as much Dave's carer as he is mine. Um, Everybody looks after their partner to some
Yeah.
extent. And actually, when I'm asking a PA to help me to cook a meal for me and Dave, or doing our laundry, that's on my behalf. That's not the PA doing the job, being Dave's PA. That's the PA doing my role, you know, helping me to fulfill my role in our household. And it's, yeah, it evens the balance, because otherwise, there would be, my needs would put such a strain on Dave that it would be uneven, and I wouldn't be able to look after him.
And that's the same in an able-bodied relationship as well. So I think the foundation is you think back and you think, if the PA wasn't there and not needed, what will your roles be
Yeah,
then? You know?
yeah. And the
Um,
fact is, you know, in an able-bodied relationship, um, you don't supervise one another getting dressed. But you know, if I were able-bodied and broke my leg or broke my wrist, and needed help washing my hair, then Dave would be the person who did that. And so we kind of use that as a rule of, if something goes wrong with the plan, with the PA, then effectively I've broken my wrist, broken my ankle, you know, I need a bit of help, but it's not a permanent state of affairs. Um, so I think, there has to be a lot of trust. There has to be
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
trust between everybody.
there does. I have a question for you,
Mm,
in terms of boundaries. So when me before my husband passed, we had an incident where a PA, me and my husband were having an argument, as all married couples do, and we had an incident where a PA very much took my side, to the point was completely rude to Paul. Have you ever had an incident where a PA's like took sides or overstepped their opinion into your two's argument?
um, I think I can't think of any. Dave, can you think of any time? I can't think of an example.
Um, I think we've always been quite careful to be, again, clear on those boundaries in advance. That, and we were talking when we were talking about this podcast, that yeah, happens, whatever would happen in an able-bodied relationship has to be allowed to happen here. And if that means me and Ruth have a row and I stomp off upstairs, that has to be allowed to happen. Otherwise, we're never actually going to disagree on anything while the PA's around, and that's going to be really weird and unnatural. So I don't notice them doing it, but I suspect if we're having a bit of a discussion, the PAs quietly step out of the room and leave us to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I have had a situation where, a PA has, uh, for instance, told me a problem with something in the house. You know, the Hoover's not working. And I know that Dave's having a horrible day at work and that everything's gone wrong at work. And so when the PA tells me that, I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm not going to greet him at the door with that news. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make sure he's got a drink in his hand. And that, you know, before I break it to him that also the house is falling apart. Well, um,
Cherry on top.
yeah, exactly. Then the PA happened to be in the kitchen when Dave came home and said, "Oh, Dave, this has happened." And it was absolutely that's interfering. If I've said I understand that, you know, I have, my experience of the day has included the Hoover breaking. Um, that's for me to decide when I tell Dave that, not for the PA to do it. And it's that kind of recognizing that those things, everything has to go, those kinds of things have to go through me, because otherwise you're interfering in how Dave and I interact, and how Dave experiences our home, which is not fair because it's his home.
I
And
guess it's also slightly taking away your autonomy too.
Yeah. It's that keeping secrets. We're recording this just before Valentine's Day, and the PA on duty knows where Dave's Valentine's card is, and he doesn't. Um, but actually, they're not keeping secrets, but it's that how you communicate with one another
Yeah.
is really important, and how to avoid a strain on a relationship.
yeah, and the same kind of goes for my relationship with the PA. If I come in and the washing up's been done awfully and there's grot all over the knives, can't really go to the PA about it because that she's doing it on Ruth's behalf. So I tend to bring the cutlery into Ruth and go, could you have a word? And then she will go and talk to her arms and legs at an appropriate moment. But no matter how annoyed I am about the burnt food on the wok, I can't really go to the PA about it because that's that relationship. And again, I don't want to inject myself into that too much.
And it's about respecting those relationships. It's very easy for a PA to get confused about who they are a PA for. And anyone who's worked anywhere there where they've had different line managers for different parts of their role, it's a nightmare, because unless those line managers are utterly on the same page, you're going to get cross communication, and you're going to get confusion, and you're going to be unclear about priorities. And that's a really unpleasant workplace to be in. So we have to be really careful not to let that happen, which is why, if Dave finds that the the things in the kitchen aren't quite going as well. Also, I might not know. There are things that I might not actually be aware of because I can't see them. And so if he doesn't tell me, that's removing my autonomy. It's something I'm responsible for, and I don't know that it's falling short.
Because I guess in a able-bodied relationship, you'd speak to each other about it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I think we need to get a dishwasher.
Yeah. I think Dave is a lot nicer to me about the shortcomings in my washing up skills than he would be if it were actually me.
It changes weekly as well.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. There was in nursing there's a concept about capacity, and it says just because somebody makes a unwise or stupid decision doesn't mean they don't have capacity. People are able to make those decisions. And I guess in this sense it's if I think that Ruth's making a stupid decision on something, knowing our relationship at the time, I'd probably tell her, like privately, but she can still make that decision. It's her, I'm here to facilitate her life, and so are the other PAs. And if she wants to live her life a certain way, that's in no part my decision to change things. And that
Otherwise, it's not actually autonomy and free will.
no, exactly.
Autonomy and free will is about being able to make bad. If you can't make bad decisions, then you're forced to make good decisions, and then you're not free to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes to perspective as well. That decision may not seem bad to you, but other people it might. But that's not us, as a PA, it's not our place to change that.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
I know, before I met Dave, I made some different relationship decisions. And I'm relatively sure that PAs, I know I had some very good PAs at the times, and I know that they probably kept their thoughts to themselves. And that's important if you're PAing somebody who isn't in a long-term relationship, but is dating. We all make daft decisions. We all make, silly choices. So,
And we're allowed to make them.
and we're
Yeah,
allowed to make them.
exactly. I think sometimes it can be it's important to make everything clear about boundaries and respect and everything, because I think initially when a PA goes into a relationship, it is a little bit for them like, right, okie dokie. They're not just learning your care needs, they're like juggling the way of doing things. Although I do know that one of my PAs was very clear with her opinion on my terrible decision of a of a romantic relationship. I then got a text later on going, "I'm so sorry. I should never have said that to you." And I was like, "Well, you've said it now, so there we go." But I think sometimes, in a jovial way, you can have those. You can share those
There's a
depending on the
difference.
type of relationship you have.
Yeah, there is a difference between a PA making it clear that maybe they have their concerns, and versus refusing to do things and
Absolutely.
actually controlling a situation. It might be appropriate to go, are you sure that you want to do this? Are you okay? Do you want an out? Do you, because that's actually facilitating, um, uh, that's facilitating freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
By going, I think you might want an out of this situation. Let me give that to you. Is improving that person's independence and autonomy.
But again, Ruth, like you were saying, that works both ways too. So, we would be invited round to see your family or Dave's family, and I know how mums can be. They're very inviting and want you to eat all the food in the world. And as a PA, we did live in work, so I was working with Ruth for five days on, and had like 9 days off, and so downtime is really important for a PA, and kind of stepping aside and just getting that space is really important. But sometimes when I feel like if you go around parents' houses and they're saying, "Oh, come and have a meal with us and come and sit down and chat," sometimes again communicating this maybe prior to going to that event with the between the PA and the employer, and saying, hey, if you need an out and you do want to just chill out for a bit and not join us for dinner, that's absolutely fine. Or if you do, again, that's also fine. But kind of
We
supporting each other.
definitely do that. And it's that reading. It's reading the room
Mm.
and recognizing that someone. Yeah, it's not. There's no problem with saying, I think you're uncomfortable here, and do you want a way out of this, and can I help you with that?
Mm.
It's a totally different thing to say, for your own good, I am going to remove you from this situation. And that those kinds of dynamics are all the more when you've got three people, not two, because communication becomes more complicated because there's things that you want to say to one person, not in front of the other one. So
Yeah.
We
So
use
that is
those
one of
words. Apologies, Dave. You go first.
Go ahead. One of the things I had to figure out when I was first got to know Ruth and PAs was what that relationship looked like, whether they were best friends, how that worked. And certainly the way we do it is they're not exactly a friend. I mean, they're paid to be there for heaven's sake. It is a job, it is a professional relationship, and they're not your therapist, they're not your confidant. They get on well, right? They have very nice conversations about these things, but ultimately it's a professional relationship. And I kind of need to trust that a little bit, that they're not going to be gossiping about me behind my back. I have no doubt you talk, but professionally.
Confidentiality, Dave. I can't
Yeah.
say anything. Sorry.
But yeah, just respecting that they are there to do a job and they need their breaks is kind of important.
Yeah, and that's true. From that example of making sure that Dave is comfortable. That yes, we all in relationship, in marriage, you do have moments where you have to go and roll your eyes. And I have to be quite careful. I am quite careful not to use the PA as a sounding board for that frustration, because that really undermines all the respect that exists between everybody. If I go and say he's driving me absolutely mad on this, he's it's usually about laundry. Let's face it, it's usually about laundry. We're a very normal couple, but it's not fair for me to.
It puts us in a weird position, and it challenges the triangle, I guess, because obviously if that was the case, and say you did want to have a bit of a whinge and a moan about laundry to me, I would feel like I would have to take your side. But again, that's not, it doesn't make you feel comfortable. It's like I like Dave and I get along with him, professionally. And but I don't feel like I would be comfortable being like, oh yeah, no, he's terrible at the laundry. He doesn't fold the clothes properly, because it would put pressure on that relationship together,
Yeah,
and and
absolutely.
and it's like you're trying to build the walls up to make it strong, and then you're kind of taking it bit by brick if
Yeah,
nattering about things behind other people's backs and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, it puts us in an interesting position.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And certainly, I think that when I was dating, that was very much why I kept PAs very separate,
Mm.
because otherwise it felt a bit like I had a housemate who was just like going into the bathroom with me and giggling, which is a really unpleasant environment to come into. It's a really uh yeah it's a it's an unfair situation, and it's not comfortable for anybody,
Mm.
and it doesn't make for good relationships.
No.
um yeah um,
We going to move on to ground rules?
yeah um uh
Yeah.
I,
So I think it's important to note these are ground rules that work for us, right? They might not work for everyone, but they
Of
do
course.
kind of help strengthen this triangle we're talking about, help make sure that we know whose role is what. So they have worked for us. Take that as you will.
yeah,
Um,
and some of the ground rules that we have are very broad. It is those kind of the PAs there to. I think Hannah, you put it well when we were talking about this before. That the PA is an extension of me. Um, and it is very much that what would happen if I were able-bodied, um, uh, and you're there to fill in the gaps in what I can do, not help me to do something I can do better.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting kind of dynamic. But if I'm going to make a phone call, I don't need any help with that, and I definitely don't need a PA to assist me in becoming better at that. But making tea for friends is something that I cannot do myself, and PAs do for me. And that extends to absolutely everything. So those are kind of the high level ground rules. But and I think also something that has become more apparent to me the longer that Dave and I have been living together is the potential for strain on Dave if he feels like sometimes he is responsible for my independence and well-being. That's not a fair balance. And so we are quite strict that even when spending time together, there is always a PA on duty. So he is always free to do his own thing, leave the house if he wants to, make his own choices. And so am I. I mean, we talked about the, if we have an argument and Dave storms off upstairs, well, maybe I want to storm out. Now, if he's the person helping me to go where I want to go, and I say I want to storm out, I do remember an argument we had where we happened to not have a PA. There's always times when the PAs fall through, and obviously it's great that Dave can step it. Dave is my safety net. But yeah, we had an argument when there was no PA, and I just turned my back and stood in the kitchen and said, "I have stormed out. Don't talk to me." Which is not ideal. That's not the goal. And had there been a PA there at that point, I would have gone, "I'm going for a walk. I'm leaving the house." And so that's a really good example of why it's really important that it's always the PA is available. And that means that Dave can do his own thing, like two adults sharing a house do.
Indeed. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Just if I wake up in the morning and want to get the dog walk out of the way, I don't want to have to get Ruth out of bed first. I want to be able to leave her there, let her wake up in her own good time. You want a lion, and we would do that as an able-bodied couple. So we do the same.
Yeah, and you don't even want to have to let the PA know that you are going. It's not even a handing over. Right, I have left the house. It's just that it shouldn't matter to the PA whether you're in the house or not. So yeah. So what are some of the other ground rules that we have? Dave, I'm trying to think. What are the ones that? Because there's loads that we have kind of baked in now. We don't really think about it. We just do it.
Yeah, we go over them in every new PA because we tend to have a rolling rotor of new PAs. Just gets to learn that if Ruth is moving in the hoist and Dave walks up to her, just pause for a second and let them have a chat or a kiss or whatever it is. Again, just trying to stay out of the way as much as is possible.
I think something that I've learned from when I worked with you, Ruth, was I always felt accomplished. I don't know if this is for every PA. I always felt really accomplished when I was like invisible. Like I was never there. And like say we had when I was PAing, we had interviews for new PAs and I was just back in the like cafe, just inconspicuous, we had no idea that I'm there. And I absolutely loved it when at the end of the day you were like, didn't even notice you. I was like, yes, achievement. And I think when you two were kind of first dating, I think obviously the ground rules that you have now have developed over time whilst you've been learning the relationship with the PA and everything yourself, whilst you two have been learning your relationship together. And so I guess those ground rules have changed over time and not everyone's going to be in the same time period of
exactly.
time stamp of the relationship.
That's it. And a lot of the time, when I tell stories about things that happened in the past, the really good PAs mean that I can't remember who was on duty because they didn't make enough of an impact on the story. The story just runs. And actually, the way you tell the story, if you don't know I'm a wheelchair user and you don't know there was a PA there, it's just a normal story.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to find that the only stories that feature PAs are the ones about PAs doing something terrible.
Yeah. Or stupid.
It's true. It's
Um,
true.
no, that's not true. There are a few stories of PAs going absolutely above and beyond. I
Yes.
remember those ones as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly in the early days, the PAs were being ever so careful to be unobtrusive. And I think Ruth was making sure that she had everything she needed to be as independent as possible on the dates. You kept the facade up for quite some time, it
I
has to be
did.
said.
But, I mean, it's a lot easier to make things look spontaneous for an evening than for 6 years. Uh,
Yeah. We had to come out of the closet at some point.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, so the rules change a little bit, but there's things like even now, Dave will ask me for help with something. I don't know, flat pack furniture, for instance, which is, I mean, there are many couples who really shouldn't put flat pack furniture together, aren't there? But if something's a two-person job in the house, then Dave won't go to the PA and say, I need to put these shelves together. Can you hold this for me? He'll come and say, can I borrow it? Can the PA help? Can whoever it is give me a hand?
I guess in a way he says, can you help?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will usually say, can I have an extra pair of hands?
Yeah.
And with your eyes closed, you wouldn't know whose hands I was asking for.
In some situations, you've got three brains going on. So, I could be using my hands to help actually make it, but Ruth's got the instructions going right.
Flat pack actually works really well because we've got two sets of hands and three brains, and Ruth with the instructions. So actually, yes.
Yeah.
I still don't like flat pack furniture,
No,
but
I don't think anyone does.
we do it quite well.
I'm the one with the instructions in my house.
Yeah.
I'm always the one. Right. No, I can't build it. Charlie's out. Where's Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like if Dave's at work and needs me to do something in the house, or needs something done in the house, then that message will come to me. The sort of I think I've left the window open in the attic, and it's starting to rain. Now I cannot get up to the attic to close the window, um, but he doesn't message the PA and say, and that goes through me, and that means that dynamic of our relationship, my relationship with Dave and my relationship with the PA, doesn't ever get circumnavigated.
Yeah.
Mm.
I actually don't have contact details for the PA at all. I don't have phone numbers and emails. And that's probably the right thing to do. I shouldn't be contacting them going behind Ruth's back. That's a bit sketchy.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true. You only have you do have them for emergencies only. You do have access to them, but you'd have to go and look them up somewhere to be able to find them.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but it's true.
Similarly, they have my number for emergencies, which, that's sensible.
Yeah.
But again, if they need something and I'm the only person who knows where it is, Ruth asks. So again, just that going through Ruth, you're the top of the triangle.
Yeah. And it's quite a good indicator if a PA hasn't quite grasped what should be happening, if that gets broken. So if a PA starts asking Dave things that she should be asking me, then it tends to happen with you know, where is this in the kitchen? Or, you know, it shows itself quite early on with waiting for Dave to come into the kitchen and asking him instead of coming and asking me, as and when the thing is needed. And that's quite a good barometer for me to know whether the PA's grasp what's going on and whether we give it more training.
I guess it all comes down to that training, isn't it? If it's kind of shown or portrayed at the start of the PA relationship, it's easier to grasp later on, and it just becomes like a second nature. Like even now, if I had
Yeah.
Dave's number, it would feel weird messaging him, you know. And I haven't worked for you for God knows how long. It would still feel odd. And like
Yeah.
at your wedding, I hadn't worked with you for ages, and yet still I came to you. It's like it's all programmed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit like friends from before the relationship. That, you know, we each had friends who we had known, and it takes quite a while, quite a change in the friendship before they become our friends. And that just continues with PAs. The PAs are my people. Um, so, but then there is a difference. You know, I think if it's dangerous to kind of relate it to friendship too much, because actually it is a different relationship. And so we have strict rules about, yeah, even down to where people, you know, PAs are asked to always wear shoes in our parts of the house, because it's just a really simple delineation. We are at home, but they are at work. So just the fact that they wear shoes. I mean, our floors are terrible because we have wheels and a dog, so like there's no keeping carpets beautifully clean. But it's just that delineation of we're at home, they're at work, and we keep that clear in quite subtle ways. Things like we don't lend things to our PAs for them to take away and bring back, even though they absolutely always intend to. You know, we know that we trust that they're coming back, but we don't lend things just because it changes the dynamic. It turns into more of a feeling of friendship, and that is a slope that ends up with real confusions.
When you have a new PA join, do you tell them of the rules and the way you run things between you, them, and Dave, or do you have it written down in like a little guide or something?
Yes, all of those things. Yeah, I mean, we have a manual which sets things out. Sets lots and lots of things out. It doesn't specifically talk about how to, you know, how that dynamic works, because it's once you write it down, it's actually quite difficult. You know, people can misconstrue it quite easily.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did have one new PA who was concerned about it and asked me and just said, "How much do I have to do for Dave? You know, how involved in your marriage do I have to be?" Which I was quite impressed at how brave that question was, actually.
Yeah.
But we try and answer those questions before they arise.
Yeah. So yeah, some of these nice concrete rules, like you will check that Ruth is okay when she gets up in the morning, are written down. But the underlying kind of here is how the dynamic works. It's dynamic. You know, we kind of have to correct that as we go along. And it is a little bit different for every PA. You know, the principles are there, but they're different people with different personalities. So it can be a bit different.
Yeah. Um, and there are people who are, yeah, everyone has different relationships. The personalities are different. There
Yeah.
are people who are. I know that if I say, "Could you do this because Dave wants you to?" Dave has asked me if you could help him with this. They'll go to the ends of the earth for him. I'm not sure they're that bothered about me. Um, and then there are other ones who are a little bit, they're not so sure, and Dave doesn't really manage to build much of a rapport with them at all, because they're a bit more standoffish. Different people do it in different ways.
And you
Yeah.
get that in everyday life as well, though, don't you? So,
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Um,
I mean, I do pointedly try not to be too matey, chatty friendly with the PAs. No reason I can't get on with them, but we shouldn't be in the upstairs kitchen sharing a cuppa and a chat because that's not what they're there for.
no,
It's not
um,
really what I should be doing either. Yeah,
no,
should be having a chat with my wife about whatever it is.
I
So
guess
there are a
ultimately,
few who have gone on to be friends afterwards. And we are perfectly happy to have a chat with them, but the relationship has changed at that point.
yeah,
I guess if two parties feel uncomfortable about something that's happening, it's probably something that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, that's the one other ground rule that it's kind of implied, but there is the duty of confidentiality, and it kind of works all the way around the triangle. Obviously, anything the PA hears at work, she can't tell. Anything that gets discussed in confidence between Ruth and the PA can't come to me. Me and Ruth will have conversations that neither of us should be sharing with the PA. So it has to be understood that, yeah, there are not secrets, but there are things that shouldn't be shared to keep everything ticking along smoothly. So
Yeah.
just that level of here are the things you don't say to who needs a little bit of emotional intelligence and all as well as the nice hard and fast boundaries around it. And yeah, that is significantly more challenging with three people around than just the two having a grumble about work.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, what works well, and what advice would you give to someone in a similar situation?
Mm. I think we should start by saying, we're not trying to paint this as perfect and rosy, and everybody should have a PA, whether they have a neuromuscular condition or not. I think Dave and I agree, and Hannah would understand that if we could live without having PAs in the house, that would be great. So, this isn't a solution to uh, domestic bliss around the world everywhere. Um,
But at the same time, there are some benefits that go some way to making up for the massive extra faff it is to get out of the house in the morning. And I think it's fair to note the things that do go well.
yeah. And I mean, those are to do with the fact that you have a PA is not a robot. A PA is a human being. And so you get all the joy of having extra human beings in your life. And uh, that means you get new viewpoints and new skills and new opinions. And we have PAs who are all between the ages of 18 and 25. And so I always have done. But as I've got older, that's given me a perspective to a different generation, which I really enjoy. I really love having that interaction. Um, so that's definitely a plus. And yeah, the flat pack furniture example. There are three people. There's three sets of skills, and you can be in three places at once. And Dave and I can be out walking the dog, and we come back and the floor is mopped. you know, um,
Which is good because otherwise the dog would savage the mop. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, those things are, yeah, there's just ways of making it a bit easier, because effectively I can split in two and be myself spending time with Dave and also be doing things physically somewhere else, whether that's housework or running errands or, you know, the things that PAs can do for me. So
independent arms and legs.
independent arms and legs.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so sadly I haven't really got the whole thing of growing up and having the 18 to 25s around, because when we met, 18 to 25 was already very young by our standards. But the thing I know, because you have I know not everyone has a rota of PAs, but we tend to have, 4 or so at any given time. And they all have their different skills and their different abilities, which means 1 week out of every 4 at the moment, we've got a qualified lifeguard. Brilliant. We can go swimming. Um, and some of them can drive, some are good with the dog. So we always have that set of skills rotating around, which is more than me and Ruth could manage on our own. So in that way, yes, sometimes you get ones who can't do the washing up, but you have there's always that set of skills available at some point.
Yeah,
So
we're
that's actually
taking
quite it's a
neither
fringe benefit, but it's quite
yeah,
nice.
neither of us speak Spanish, but we are going to Spain this summer with with someone who is fluent in Spanish, which is super helpful because we're going with family. Nobody in the family speaks Spanish, and yet we are magically going with a Spanish speaker. So, you know, um, and that's just a choice of who you put on duty when, based on what what you need to be doing.
Like one
So,
week you can speak Spanish and the next you can't.
yeah, exactly.
If you just make sure you're going to Spain on the right week,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
everything's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, we kind of break the rule about what would it be like if I were able-bodied, in that we take advantage of those things, because to be really strict with that rule, we wouldn't ever make use of any of those skills. But actually, as Dave says, there have to be some perks.
Yeah.
There have to be some things to offset the the challenges of everything that we do. So, yeah. And all of those people, I mean, you know, Hannah is one of them, but we have this huge uh, extra set of people in our lives. Loads more Christmas cards to write. Um, you know, and at our wedding was lovely because we had a strict rule. Dave was very strict with me about the guest list, that we could only invite past PAs who Dave knew, and so all the PAs who'd PA'd us together in our relationship were invited, but before that, only the ones that David already met, because otherwise it was going to be absolutely ridiculous and we were going to have to hire an extra venue. Um, and
We still
actually,
ended up with a solid couple of tables of PAs and PAs families, which was wonderful. Got to catch up on everyone from the past 8 years, and see what they'd all been doing. So Hannah's an example, but we do get to see all of these people who have learned some skills with us and then gone off and used them elsewhere.
Hmm.
So that's another of the things that's actually quite nice out of it.
yeah, we've got so Hannah's in nursing. We've got a forensic detective. We've got someone in finance in the City of London. I'm trying to think what other cool jobs people have gone off to do. But yeah, it's really fun just hearing people's news um, and having, as I say, that extra set of people who know us very well and who we know very well, which is lovely.
I liked your wedding because normally as PAs, we briefly get to say hello to the PA as we're leaving and they're starting their shift. And actually at the wedding we had a good chat and so many people from different parts of your life were there as well. Back when you were at uni and all sorts. So I think most of the conversation was, so when did you get to know Dave? It
Oh,
was good.
now it comes out.
Yeah, but no, it was nice. It was a
Yeah.
good wedding. And you had the skills for the wedding as well, didn't you?
Oh, well, I
'Cause
mean,
That's a
like,
perfect example of
yeah,
there were so many people who are used to helping Ruth and can fix things that
yeah.
yeah, we had a
So
sound engineer, didn't we?
yeah, so I studied music before I did my nursing, and so I helped with all. I think something went wrong with the sound for the music, so I was helping with that. Someone looks after kids, so they were looking after all the kids whilst they were going mad. So it was brilliant. You guys had no stress because we were all running
yeah,
around doing stuff,
yeah,
and
we
we
were
weren't even
covered.
on shift.
Mm.
Yeah, but it works well. It does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Cool. So, in terms of sort of advice, I think that we can finish off with a word of advice to someone who's walking into our position. Um, and I would say if you are starting to date someone where it turns out later there's a PA in the background, you are going to have to accept that things work a bit differently. Um, there's going to be someone else around. It's all going to be not quite the same. The trick is to work with it and to look for ways to make it work for you. Um, and just lean into it, I think is the phrase. Just lean into having that extra person around, and look for the good bits.
Like being open to adaptability.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I suppose my advice would be it fits with that in that you need to have the right people. And obviously the right husband, um, but in terms of PAs, recruitment is everything. And
Yeah.
I am very, very open about the fact that our first year together ran smoothly and we were able to get to know each other and Dave was able to get used to what my life was like because of the caliber of the PAs I had that year. I had a phenomenal team, um, uh, and they made it super easy for me and Dave just to get to know each other, um, and that continues. If I make a wrong hiring decision, that does impact our lives, and so I have to minimize those. And so recruitment is absolutely everything, and much more now than when I was single. I can't just bimble along with a bad choice. I have to get it right. And once you've got the right people in the environment, then the rest kind of flows.
My advice would probably be kind of reiterating what we'd said before, but as a PA perspective, our role is to support the person to live their life the way that they would want to live it. And even if that may not be the way that you would do things personally, you need to help facilitate that and be open, like Dave was saying, be open to adaptability and try new things because you may learn something too. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Right. I'm going to turn the recording off. Then we can all relax.